So why is it that, as per episode 2 of this series, decriminalisation almost inevitably increases drug use? Why is it a failure in Portugal, whose policy is to dissuade users from using, but where drug use continues on an ever upward path? To answer that question, we need to understand something about the law, criminal convictions, and motivations against use. 73% of Australians say that they have no interest in illicit drug use at all. For them, legality or illegality will not change their minds. 32% say they don't use drugs because they are illegal. Allowing for that small percentage of dissonance between those two statistics, that 32% figure tells us that illegality is a quite powerful deterrent. The same survey says 10% would try cannabis if it was legal, roughly doubling Australian cannabis use. Illegality is therefore a real deterrent. And we thereby know that legalisation will always markedly increase drug use. But drug decriminalisation is not drug legalisation, is it? Looking at cannabis decriminalisation in Australia as our guide, when cannabis was decriminalised in our ACT, use skyrocketed for those who had tried cannabis before, going from negligible in a territory with no entrenched cannabis suppliers up to 31% by 1993, settling back to the levels of other states that already had entrenched supply. The reason decriminalisation is quasi-legalisation is that 43% of surveyed ACT citizens thought that cannabis was now legal. We know use will increase where a substance is legal, always. So let's just recap the reasons certain drugs are illegal. They are deemed to create too much harm around each user. In episode 3 of this series, we looked at that constellation of harm using the grandparents of a user's children as an example, where tens of thousands of dollars are in a sense stolen from them due to their children's drug use. That is why there are criminal penalties. Shoplifters, by comparison, steal only hundreds of dollars but get a criminal penalty. Because the harms are too great, surveyed Australian disapproval of heroin, ice, speed, cocaine and ecstasy shows that they want less drug use, not more. And so that is also why they are illegal. Yet these are the very drugs they want to decriminalise. So what is the dynamic that makes decriminalisation the same as quasi-legalisation? Remember, this is all in societies that want less drug use, not more. So, because their false opening premise is that drug use hurts nobody except the user, and because the internal dynamic of all drug liberalisation is always towards no pressure on users to cease, resulting in penalising illicit drug use with the equivalent of a parking fine, which is something so trivial as to be of no real consequence, there is nothing left that genuinely encourages cessation of use. That is the dynamic right there. This means that decriminalisation can never drive recovery, the only thing that will create less drugs. It removes all meaningful limits or deterrence value in drug laws, for example, by scrapping our drug courts, being little different to fully legalising drugs, practically speaking. The result is Portugal's increasing use and deaths against Australia's tough on drugs policy, which decreased use and deaths between 1998 and 2007. Portugal, a country that specifically decriminalised drugs so that they could concentrate on reducing drug use, demonstrates the internal dynamics of failure. and the statistics of failure. Just as a side note, Drug Free Australia advocates for spent convictions, where a criminal record is totally erased if a drug user can return drug-free tests over a 3-year period. Deterrence is maintained while giving the user every motivation to change. All evidence cited here can be found in the document seen on the right. Follow the instructions on your screen. Next episode, who is behind this failed agenda?